The charming city of Copenhagen is an exciting destination to either add to your Europe itinerary or even visit independently. This capital city of Denmark is especially great to visit between March to August. Copenhagen is a city where history meets modernity, where stunning architecture, cozy cafes, and breathtaking natural spots come together to create an unforgettable travel experience. Strolling through the colorful streets of Nihau, which you've surely seen on Instagram, biking along scenic canals, or exploring hidden gems beyond the main city of Copenhagen will make your trip truly magical. To tell you all about the best spots in and around Copenhagen, we have a special guest joining us, our local expert and tour guide, Agnethe. She knows the city inside out, and she is here to take us on a journey through some amazing locations, both within and just outside Copenhagen. So let's dive in and explore Copenhagen through the eyes of a local.
Hello everyone. My name is, the Danish version of it is Agnethe. That might confuse you with the way it's spelled, and don't worry about it. It's what I always tell people because Danish is notoriously tricky to learn. No one in Denmark expects travelers to get our names correctly. We just smile, so don't worry about that. So I'm a native to Denmark. I'm actually a native to Copenhagen. I got into tour guiding 10 years ago. I have a background in Danish literature and history. I've always been a history nerd. So tour guiding was the perfect job to explore that interest and share the love of my city. I've lived here all my life, so I know pretty much everything there is to know. And here we are 10 years later, still doing it because I love it so much. Copenhagen is the perfect mixture of a big city. It has a capital city feel to it, but it's also quite small. It's really one of the smallest capitals in the world. It only has 500,000 people. So I think to some of that's very small. To a Danish person, that's the big city. So we have people from the countryside, they come to Copenhagen, they say, oh wow, it's so big. Where do I go? How do I find my way? So there's lots of things. And that's usually what I recommend if you are 3 days or more in Copenhagen. I recommend going out of the city bit. 2 days in Copenhagen will cover all your needs, and it might be stressful to go somewhere else. So one of the top attractions, it's nicknamed Hamlet's Castle, but the actual name is Kronborg Castle. And that's one of my favorite places. That's actually a place I would want to live myself if I wasn't in Copenhagen, because the city is so lovely. It gives this really cozy feel. It has very beautiful historic houses dating back over 400 years, older than most houses in Copenhagen. The castle itself is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It has a very fascinating history. Plus, it inspired Shakespeare to write Hamlet. It has a fantastic view. You can visit Sweden from there. You can take the ferry across to Sweden. You can see 2 cities in a day if you want, because the ferry takes like 20 minutes. It's super close. Normally just staying in Elsinore in English makes it easier for you guys to say. Elsinore, besides the castle, has the Maritime Museum of Copenhagen. If you like maritime history, sailor stories, or want to explore part of Denmark's history, that's a cool place to go. You can visit it on the way to the castle because it's a beautiful piece of modern architecture. It's actually one of Denmark's most famous contemporary architects. Vikings, it's quite new. And then take a stroll around the town. You can visit the cathedral. It's quite beautiful and free to visit. And then it can actually be combined with another major Danish attraction. So if you take the train up to Elsinore, you can make a stop on the way, or when you're coming back from Elsinore to Copenhagen, because in the very same train line, we have the small town of Humlebaek. And Humlebaek is cute, but not a top attraction. It has one of the most famous art museums in Northern Europe, Louisiana Museum of Modern Art. It's a world-famous museum for modern and contemporary art. The architecture is unique, made by 2 Danish architects, but they took a lot of international inspiration. And the museum is located in an absolutely beautiful little nature spot near the Baltic Sea. You have an amazing view of the Baltic Sea. I take lots of people there and they love it. Another thing to see north of Copenhagen is we have lots of castles in Denmark. We've been a kingdom with a monarchy, still an existing monarchy, for at least 1100 years. We have castles all over the country, but the best ones are near Copenhagen. Another castle worth visiting besides Kronborg Castle is Frederiksborg. Frederiksborg is one of the most beautiful Renaissance castles in the Nordic countries, built by one of Denmark's famous kings, Christiansborg. Ask any Dane, they will know this. If you only have time for one castle, pick that one over Hamlet Castle or Kronborg, even though that's more famous, because it's so beautiful. It has a fantastic interior with paintings and furniture and artifacts from Middle Ages and up until the 19th century. So it's walking through Danish royal history when you walk through the rooms. The palace chapel has deep historic significance for the Danish royal family and for Denmark, but it's also absolutely fantastic decorated. Also, if you come in spring, summer, early autumn, the park is really worth a visit. And a park inspired by the larger royal park in Versailles, where bushes and trees cut into specific shapes. It's a beautiful location. Another top recommendation. The fourth must-see location is Roskilde, one of our truly old cities. It's actually a true Viking city. Copenhagen is not, unfortunately, but Roskilde existed in the Viking Age. That was probably when it was established. And it's a great place to dive into Denmark's Viking history. That's become very popular recently. A lot of people watch TV shows about the Norsemen. Denmark is part of that history, and we have the Roskilde Viking Museum, which very well preserved remnants of 5 Viking ships from 1,000 years ago. Fun fact, in summer you can do a boat trip on rebuilt replicas of Viking ships from scratch. A warning, if that's something you want to do, it takes a whole hour and you have to row the boat. If other adventurers, you can go Viking boats like the Vikings. You have to row like the Vikings. If you go to Roskilde, besides the Viking Museum, go to Roskilde Cathedral. Both the Viking Ship Museum and Roskilde Cathedral are UNESCO World Heritage. The cathedral, it was built in the 13th century. It has architecture from the last 800 years because they've kept adding to it. It's a beautiful example of a medieval Danish church, which you don't find in Copenhagen, unfortunately. Churches in Copenhagen are not that old. So that beautiful interior with church frescoes, and it's completely different from medieval churches in mainland Europe. That's actually something that people often get surprised about, how different it is. It's a very Nordic style, very Danish style. It's famous for being the main royal mausoleum, the main royal burial site from the last over 400 years. Technically, they buried royals there for the last 1,000 years, but since late 1500, late 16th century, it has been the burial spot for Danish kings and queens, because the tradition's still ongoing. There's a lot of history and family drama connected to that. The church does a good job of kind of explaining that. So that's a must-see if you are in Roskilde. And then you can stroll around in the lovely little town. It's also quite small. You can take the train from Copenhagen. It takes only half an hour, very convenient. Let's take the big famous one first, Tivoli Gardens, as it's known in English. We locals just call it Tivoli, which is Copenhagen's amusement park. And very popular among visitors, especially families with children, but people from all age groups go. People from the rest of Denmark come every couple of years. And one of the oldest amusement parks in the world. It dates back to the middle of the 19th century. And it even has one of the world's oldest existing roller coasters, which is actually one of my favorite rides. It's also a place where they have concerts throughout the year and seasonal markets. If you come in December, it's a really cool place to go. It's really beautiful, very beautifully decorated. It's pricey because you pay quite a lot for the entry to Tivoli. They really know what to charge. And then there aren't so many rides open. So it's mostly you go around and you buy something to eat and drink, like local Christmas delicacies and local arts and crafts. Good place to buy Christmas presents, actually, or just buy something locally made. It is very beautiful to see the park in the Christmas with decorations. If you don't bring kids, you might want to think twice about visiting Tivoli, simply because there's so many other attractions, and it's very much geared towards families with children. Not to say that you shouldn't go without children, but there are many other places in Copenhagen. And there are a couple of castles in Copenhagen as well. The ones I recommend are the Christiansborg. Christiansborg is not the home of the royal family. They don't live there, but it's their workplace. It's where they have ceremonies, state banquets, and when the royal family is not using it, you can visit it. That's quite an interesting place to go to see that. You can also visit the king's horses. They only work a couple of days a year, and you can also see it's a historic site as well that dates back to the Middle Ages. So you can go to ruins of former castles that used to be there underneath the current castle. My top recommendation for a Copenhagen castle, which is also very historic. If you go on a weekday outside summer, you might be surrounded by local school classes. It's called Rosenborg Castle. you need to pre-book to make sure you get tickets. Pretty much all other attractions in Denmark, you can usually just buy tickets on location for most places. Rosenborg, you have to pre-book because it's a very big attraction, but it's a small castle. They limit the amount of people who can go in at any given time. Rosenborg is another beautiful Renaissance castle from early 17th century. It's actually built in the same time period as Frederiksborg by the same king. Rosenborg is one of the most well-preserved castles in Denmark. With a lot of the original interior, it has the crown jewels of Denmark. Shrouds kings and queens used to wear, and the jewelry set the Queen of Denmark still wears on official occasion. So if you go one day and it's missing, she's wearing it. She doesn't do that often, so you have a high chance of seeing it. Don't worry about that. As long as you get your ticket, you skip the line and go in. It can be crowded, but you always see things. It's also surrounded by a beautiful public park called the King's Garden. So if you want to see where locals like to hang out on a sunny day, check out the King's Garden. You'll see lots of Danes basking in the sun. Another attraction close to Rosenborg is the National Art Gallery. If you like art but you don't want to go to Louisiana, go to the National Art Gallery, or SMK as locals call it. SMK has Danish art from several hundred years ago up until contemporary art. So they have permanent collections and they also have temporary collections. The architecture of the building is an attraction of its own because it's actually from two buildings from two periods that are united into one. And it looks a bit strange from the outside, but from the inside, it actually looks really cool, the way that the old building and the new building are connected. The museum has paintings by some of the most famous Danish artists from especially 19th and early 20th century. And it's a beautiful building. So I would recommend that for the art lovers. Also has a beautiful park that you can visit while you're there if you like nature spots. If you like Danish history and really don't want to do a deep dive into that, you want to stay in Copenhagen, the National Museum is a good place. There is a Viking exhibition at the National Museum. It's a temporary one, so it should be there for a couple of years. It's different from the Viking Ship Museum. Probably wouldn't do both unless you really love Vikings, but they both have something to offer. The National Museum has several time periods, so you can just basically pick what interests you most. Neolithic Danish history, Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age. If you ever had anything to do with the Romans, Roman Empire, you can visit that. You can see lots of artifacts from the Middle Ages. You can also learn about our relationship with our former colonies, how we tried to be a colonial empire and failed miserably. There's something about that as well. And so it has something for every level of historically interested people. Another art museum worth visiting in Copenhagen is the Carlsberg Glyptotek. As the name says, it has something to do with the Carlsberg Brewery. It is a famous brewery in Copenhagen. And they have a foundation that supports the arts. And the son of Carlsberg's founder actually created a whole art museum just behind Tivoli and filled it with his personal art collection, which was massive. So that can also be visited. It's not really Danish art because he was more into ancient Mediterranean art, Roman art, Greek art, Egyptian art. So that's one of the best Nordic collections in Northern Europe. French travelers in Copenhagen, they go to that art museum because it has a very impressive collection of 19th century French artists. And the building is beautiful, especially the interior. For visitors, if you want to see something specifically Danish, it's the Design Museum. The Design Museum is about Danish interior design, Danish furniture design, which is now worldwide famous. So it takes you through the history, the origins of the design movement that's still going very strong. And it's actually located in a neighborhood where there are still design shops with the classical Danish furniture design. So you can go shopping spree, or if you can't bring home the furniture or it's a bit out of your price range because it's quite expensive furniture, you can go window shopping and just enjoy how beautiful it looks. We have some people who are very interested in Denmark's World War II connection. World War II had a huge impact on the whole continent, and what happened in World War II is different in every country. I would say that Denmark's experience in World War II is quite interesting because it's quite unique. We came relatively unscattered out of World War II. There is a museum of Danish resistance close to the Design Museum where you experience what it was to live through World War II in Denmark. It's a museum that's focused on showing artifacts. You walk around and get stories from local people living through the period. It's a small museum. It doesn't take that long to go through it, but it gives you a perspective.
Is Copenhagen packed full of things to do and see? Are you adding any of these spots to your bucket list? If you're from Copenhagen, let us know what are your favorite spots in the city. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more travel inspiration and learn all about spectacular destinations all around the world.